Hello everybody. My name is Janine. I work for WWF. I work at a program called the Sustainable Fisheries Program. So it's all about sustainable fisheries. And we work throughout the so-called seafood chain of custody. So we work with the fishermen and we help them understand why the regulations are in place, and we help them understand that it's not to try and make their life more difficult, it's actually to help them towards a sustainable future. And then we work with restaurants and retailers, we work with government, and then ultimately we work with the consumer. So the topic of my talk today is whether or not sustainable seafood is everybody's business. And hopefully by the end of the discussion, or talk at you, we will be able to answer that question. So I just want to ask, who here loves seafood? Yes. What do you like about seafood? What is it that attracts you to the idea of eating seafood? It's healthy, exactly. What else? Carl? You've heard of this talk like 1,000 times. Taste. People love the taste. Exactly. It's the most traded primary commodity in the world. It's considered healthy. A lot of people like eating it because it's trendy, and it's considered a much better alternative to red meat. So that's what's to love about seafood. Unfortunately, though, the love of seafood that we have globally has resulted in this. On a global scale, our fish stocks are at a breaking point. The most recent studies conducted by the Food and Agricultural Organization estimated that 80% of our global fish stocks are fully or overfished. And if we look at the local situation, it's not doing much better. So if you just spend some time looking at this graph, we're looking at the catch of geelbek, red roman, and silver carp, which are three of the very important lionfish species in South Africa, over the past, say, 100 years. And if this is exactly the same effort that they've put into catching these fish, so it's the same number of boats, the same number of men, the same number of man hours, and you can just see how the catches have decreased over the past 100 years. And it's such a bad state that in 2000, the then environmental minister declared our lionfish stocks in a state of emergency. So that's what it's looking like in South Africa. And of course, we have numerous different fishing methods because our fish all have different habits. They live in different niches. We've got to employ different methods to try and catch them. And so I'm just going to go through the different methods that we employ in South Africa, just to give you an idea of the issues and the challenges that we have when we're thinking about sustainable seafood. So there's long lining. As the name suggests, it's an incredibly long line that's sent out from the back of the boat. In some vessels, it can be up to 14 kilometers long. And every few meters, they'll deploy a hook, which has bait attached to it. And this method of fishing has an incredibly high rate of bycatch. And when I say bycatch, I just mean anything that's not the target species. So for example, there's hake longlining in South Africa. And the bycatch species in hake longlining is seabirds, like albatrosses and petrels, and sea turtles, sharks, huge number of other species that come up onto the deck in longlining. We've got trawling, which is a really, really huge net that's sent out from the back of the boat. The mouth of the net can be as wide as a rugby field is long. That's how big the nets are that we're talking about. And bottom trawling, which is what this picture depicts, it's a big net that's dragged on the bottom of the ocean. And the issues and the challenges that we need to consider here are benthic damage, so damage to the bottom of the ocean floor. And when it comes up, it pulls up pretty much anything that comes in the way of the mouth of the net. So we're talking sharks, we're talking seals, we're talking turtles, we're talking angelfish, we're talking everything other than the target species. Huge level of bycatch. With purse seining, it's similar to trawling, except it's in the pelagic zone, so it's in the top sort of 200, 300 meters of the water column. And there's also a high level of bycatch, not as much as bottom trawling, and there's obviously no interaction with the bottom of the ocean floor, so there's no sort of benthic damage. But in certain areas of the world, as you guys probably know, they purse seine for tuna, and there's a huge interaction with dolphins. So there can be high levels of bycatch in purse seining as well. And then of course in South Africa, hand lining, for example, snook, as this picture depicts, is very popular as well. Hand lining really just refers to anything like a rod and a reel, just using a singular line to catch a fish. Very selective, not as much bycatch, a much better form of fishing if you're thinking in terms of the environmental damage. And so these are the issues that we have to consider when we think about fishing. Selectivity, there's no fishing method that's 100% selective. There's a high rate of bycatch in most fisheries, and the Food and Agricultural Organization has estimated that 25% of what is caught in fishing operations is thrown back, often dead, and obviously it's a waste. I mean, just for example, if you look at this, you would have no idea what this fishing vessel is actually targeting. It's a huge number of species that's there. This is actually a hake trawl. Do you see any hake? There's like everything else but hake. 300,000 seabirds are killed in fisheries every year on a global scale. And this is an example of an albatross that's been pulled down by a longliner. So what happens is they get attracted to the bait. They have now recognized that vessels are a source of food. So when the bait goes down, they try and catch it. They get hooked onto the hook and they get dragged down and drowned. 250,000 turtles are killed in fisheries every year. Exactly the same scenario. And scientists have estimated that up to 90% of our top predators have already been fished out. These are things like sharks, tunas, the big fish. And so I just want to give you some idea of the amazing characteristics of these animals. For example, these are wandering albatrosses. They mate for life, like a lot of humans do.